The great saxophone player John Coltrane blew a tune called A Love Supreme. Today's Tanya talks about it. The love from the supreme, the highest of all, which is in the deep waters of our soul, and how to tap it, how to release it. Okay, here we are together again on the morning of the 3rd of Iyar and Hayom Yom, the daily day. One should not drink water before Havdalah. Okay? Nothing. You don't taste anything before Havdalah. Okay. It is possible, the Frierdiker Rebbe tells us, to utilize God's service according to Torah. In the service of God, one can utilize all behavior traits. This includes those traits that are unwholesome and even those that are evil, as their names and descriptions indicate. In other words, things that are prohibited in Torah, we can learn lessons in the avodah that we need to do in Torah. For example, the tzaddik Rabbi Menachem Zushi of Anapoli, of blessed memory, learned a number of methods of serving God from a thief. A, the thief works quietly without knowing. This expression, behatzena leches, a person should go quietly, with sneers. Don't be flashy. Just go and do your thing in Kedusha. Like the thief, he works quietly, doesn't make much noise. He is ready to place himself in danger. The smallest detail is of greatest importance to him. These are all traits that we are meant to take into our service of Hashem, even though we're talking about a thief. He labors with great toil, diligently, alacrity. He is confident and optimistic. If he did not succeed the first time, he tries again and again. 7 things, I think it's 7, that we learn from a thief. Okay. Everything can be utilized for the service of Hashem. Lessons in Tanya. We're on, today, 3, on page 654. 654. And over here, in Mikuti Amorim, Gimel. The middle of page Samech Gimel. Middle of the page, the line begins L'hishtadla, and it's over at the end. Okay, we have 2 levels of love, Avas Oilam and Ava Rabba. The love, and both of these are contemplative loves. Love, the first one, love that comes from contemplating the infinite diversity of the reality, and where does it come from? Okay, and that's a love which is characteristic of which is desire, wanting to merge with the infinite, for lack of better words. And then Avarabba, which is there, I've reached it. I'm in the lap of my Father. It's a quieter kind of love. Okay, but then he's told us yesterday that there's a level of love which is higher than both of them. And that's the love which is expressed by David HaMelech, Nafshihi besicho balayla. My soul, meaning God, you are my soul, I beseech you in the night. Even in the darkness, before contemplation, awakening, before the awakening of contemplation and meditation, there's a nature in every Jew that's hidden, that realizes that your soul, just like your soul is life to your body, Hashem is the life of everything. It's a simple revelation that just needs to come to the surface. And that's the love he spoke about, one of the loves that arises even higher than the first 2 we mentioned. And today he's going to tell us about another love, which is also in that category of deeper than. When we say rise above, I mean, it's an interesting thing to note in general. Higher and higher means deeper and deeper. When you say that something is higher, lamayla metam v'das, it's higher than reason, meaning it's deeper in our consciousness than reason. Reason is more superficial. Similarly, when you say that our prayers rise higher and higher into levels of Hashem, that means deeper and deeper into the embedded levels of deep consciousness of Hashem. So, another love, which is higher, deeper than those other two, is, as we're about to state, this is today's Tanya. And a love which is greater than this, greater than that love which is just to know that Hashem is my life. What is this other deeper love? Which is Misateres Gamkem B'chol Nefesh Yisrael, and this other love is also a love which is hidden in the soul of every Jewish person, B'Yerushim Avosenu, as an inheritance from our fathers and our mothers. This is a love which is indicated in that section of the Zohar called Raya Mehemna, the faithful shepherd, which of course is speaking about Moshe Rabbeinu, the one who is faithful, number one, and as Chassidus explains, number two, the one who nourishes our faith. He's the shepherd of faith, one who shepherds faith. And attachment to Moshe Rabbeinu is a pathway to shepherding and guiding and bringing forth our emunah. So it says in that section of the Zohar, this particular phrase, which is the phrase that he's going to use to explain this second level of love, which is higher than Avos Olam and Avos Rabba. An expression in the Zohar is like a child who strives to constantly be close to and running after his father and his mother. He'll do everything and anything for the father and the mother. He loves the father and the mother more than himself and more than his own soul. And more than his soul and more than his ruach, the two levels of his soul that are embodied, that are present in the body, nefesh and ruach. The child has an instinct of loving father and mother without a lot of knowledge, and even in the face of, as we see often in the face of where there's difficulty in their relationship on a conscious level, on a deeper level, there's a unity, because after all of us are part and parcel of the DNA and the fabric of our mothers and our fathers. And so there's a fabric, that's not a bad metaphor, there's a fabric there that holds us together at deep levels, regardless of what's going on in our more conscious levels. So this is the love of a child to a mother and father, and to the extent that the child is willing to give over his own life for the sake of his parents. Now back to Hashem. Of course, Hashem is our Father, the Father of everything. If we want to use this fabric, the whole fabric of reality is a fusion from God himself, and we're part and parcel of that fabric. Because isn't it true that there is only one Father to all of us, and we're all like children to Hashem, who's our Father? And if you say, well, yes, that's true, but who am I? Who am I to feel that? I mean, it's so deep, it is, right? And deep, and it needs to be brought to the surface. How can I possibly feel that, which is so deep that I'm part and parcel of the fabric of God himself? How do I feel that? How can I have in one portion of that, one portion in 1,000, from the level of love and given overness and bittul to and complete faithfulness to Hashem, because he's my Father and he is constantly, and I'm constantly enveloped in his fabric. Well, that's a function I understand. Moshe Rabbeinu, he's the one who's Raya Mehemno. He had perfect faith. Right? He is the shepherd of faith, and he's the one who nourishes faith. And that's the key. Because why? Because Mikol Mokem, Hari Efes Katsehu V'Shemetz Menehu, because there is a bit, there is a trace, Mirav Tuvay, from the great goodness, V'Oirei, and the light, Umer leklalos Yisrael, which radiates to the entirety of the Jewish people, and meaning to every single one of the Jewish people, b'kol dor v'dor, in each and every generation, from the Moshe Rabbeinu, the spark of Moshe Rabbeinu, which is embedded within us. That's something we learned earlier, but we're learning now one of the beautiful consequences of that Moshe Rabbeinu, the spark of Moshe Rabbeinu is embedded in each and every one of us, is that we have naturally this emunah, which again is deeper than, higher than, deeper than any conscious thought we have of connection with all and everything, which is Hashem. As is written in the section of the Zohar called the Tikkunim, the Zohar writes, that there's a hispashtus, a flow, an energetic of Moshe Rabbeinu in each and every generation. And that spark conducts us, and lahanhora really, and that spark illuminates us, lahanhora, and illuminates us. Except that this illumination, this light, is in a state of very deep concealment in the nefashos kol beis Yisrael, in the souls of every Jewish person. And now comes the hara and avoda. Now comes what we can use, right? We're always looking in Tanya for what are the instructions that Hashem is giving us, and that the Alter Rebbe is giving us to actualize this state, which is called the Beinani, the one who is in a constant state of avodas Hashem. So, how can we bring this forth? He says, to bring forth this love, this level of love, like we are a child to Hashem and are always attached to Hashem, which is the reality. How can we bring the feeling of that to ourselves, to our consciousness? To bring this fact into consciousness and awareness from the concealed states to the revealed states, that it should be revealed in our heart and our brain. It says, this is not a miraculous thing to do. And it's not far from us to do. Remember back to the frontispiece of Tanya. The thing is very close to you. To do it. That's the whole premise of the Tanya. That it's as we've said many times, it's a book of instructing us. It's a guidebook in how to wake up the godly nature which is within us, so that it's an active force in our everyday life. He says it's very close to you. Beficha olavavecha, where? In your mouth and in your heart. The hainu, which means what? All you have to do is ragel al lashoinai. Bring it to your mouth. Speak about it, as we are now. Speaking about it brings it to a external reality, which you hear with your own ears, and which becomes habitual in your mouth, l'shoinai, v'koilai, in your voice, la'ada kavanas libai, in order to arouse this intentionality in your heart, ubrain, umoichoi, lahamik ma'ashavtoi, and something else, think about it. Speak about it. Right? We say in Shema, right? Walk when you're walking in the way, when you're sleeping at night, when you're walking in the day. Think about it. Speak about it. Bring it. And of course, the way to speak about it and bring about it is through, as we are now, engaging in talk about it as we're learning. Learning, of course, is speaking about it and talking about it, and then finding ways to apply this in each and every one of the possible moments of your day. Lahamik mashavte, to deepen one's thought and speech about the Chaya Chayim, the one who is the life of life, who is the Ein Sof Baruch Hu. Kihu Avinu Mamish. I mean, we had a little session last night on Spirits Oimer, and we were talking about we had a problem in front of us. We wanted to do a presentation. We were talking about how we needed equipment from the presentation, and where are we going to get this? And someone who was on the periphery of the presentation said, listen, I have that. And every once in a while, you get a sense that, that there's activity going on if you have the right intentionality, that really God is there to help you, and God is there to illuminate you. All you have to do is point yourself in the right direction. And he's saying here, pointing yourself the right direction means to talk about it, to speak about it, to think about it. Get your conscious self to speak the things which you know are in your heart. And then he's told us in other places, and even if initially you don't feel it, you will feel it, because Hergel Nasa Sheva Teva Sheni, accustoming yourself to it becomes your second nature. And then it becomes part of your nature. And then you will have an awareness, a feeling, an ability to carry with you the awareness of Hashem, and you being a part of the fabric of godliness. By talking about and thinking about the Chaya Chaim, the Ein Sof Baruch Hu, Ki Hu Avinu, that He is our Father, Mamish Amiti, our true Father, Umakoirei, and He Emokar Chayenu, and He is the source of our life. Love Ha'ava Ba'ava Kaben, Ka'avas Haben, and in this way to bring forth from the hiddenness of the hidden reaches of your soul an awareness of the fact that you are like a son, a child to the Father. Haben Ela'av, a child to the Father. When you make this your habit, regila, you make it, this is the customary and habitual thing you do, tamid, continually, here he says, hargal nasa teva, what you habituate yourself to becomes your nature. Here he says, teva sheni, hargal nasa teva sheni. Creating a habit eventually becomes second nature, and it becomes who you naturally feel you are. That's today's Tanya. Make yourself conscious by just speaking about it, talking about it, learning about it, thinking about it as much as possible. Okay, comments and questions.
What do you think the message for a person is when they see Hashgacha Pratis and they're like, oh wow, this totally worked out, and then it falls through?
But then that's also, the message is that's also Hashgacha Pratis. And you say, okay, what am I going to learn from this? It's always Hashgacha Pratis.
I guess it's like what they say about Shidduchim, that a soul has to meet, and even if they don't end up married, they still have to have gone through that touch.
Everything that happens to you is Hashgacha Pratis. Right? Everything. It's just that we have a nature that says, if it works out, we say, oh, wow, Hashgacha Pratis. Right. but we have to, that's just something we have to learn. And then we have to know also that since it's Hashgacha Pratis, even when it appears to be negative, Ein Ra Yored Mishamayma. There is no bad that comes from heaven. There are obstacles which come from heaven, and the obstacles are meant for you to strengthen yourself and build yourself up. And that's part of the Hashgacha Pratis, that Hashem creates problems, situations that are difficult, in order for you to strengthen yourself. And that's Hashgacha Pratis. Rivka.
Hi, yeah. This is very beautiful. And certainly the last part about accustoming yourself, making it regular, a habit part of your life of connecting with Hashem is important. But I like in the beginning, the Alter Rebbe mentions, like, don't have false modesty. Like, Hashem doesn't care about me. Hashem doesn't, who am I? I'm not Moshe Rabbeinu. It's like Hashem is there for every single person equally.
Absolutely.
And that you're not, you'll meet people and they'll say, well, oh yeah, I'm also Jewish, but I'm not really Jewish. Right. I suppose your mother Jewish? Yeah. You're Jew. You're just as Jewish as any other Jew. You're 100%. That's it, and to have that sense, which is also a beautiful basis for Havas Yisrael, that every Jew has
Yes.
the Yerusha. It's mamish
That's what he says,
inborn,
right? It's Yerushalayim Yamasenu. It
inborn
absolutely is.
connection with
Inborn connection.
Hashem that's as close as any other Jew. Like
Yep.
compared to even compared if however levels you want to go up, we're all, even the highest
Yes.
tzaddik, we're all far away from Hashem or as closest to Hashem. We're equal.
Absolutely.
Um,
Beautiful. Beautiful.
so it's really
Uh,
nice. It's a
oh,
beautiful piece. Tanya, thank you.
I, okay, good. Thank you. iPhone. Who's
Oh,
iPhone?
it's me, it's Kayanka. I was
Leanka, hi.
talking to some people yesterday, and the question came up, like when you daven for something, for someone, and it
Excuse me.
doesn't come out what you wanted. The outcome isn't what you were davening for. Like for refuah or something. And we were saying we can't answer that.
Right. You can't.
But what came out was we were talking about at least we have to recognize the hand of Hashem in every little thing that we see. Those little miracles, like you talked about the person having what you needed. Every
Yeah.
time, when you find a parking place that's,
Right.
every time it's Hashem is thinking about you and
Oh,
caring.
I love it. I have to tell you a short story about parking place. In the work I do, I have to deal with. I have to find buildings that need work because that's what we do. We do work on buildings, and I was out with my supervisor. My supervisor. I run a government contract, so this is the government guy from the government named Daniel, and we're looking at a building, and we wanted to go in, and I can't find a parking place. I go round and round, and I said, "Oh, Daniel, we're lucky. Here's one." And I park. He lets me park. We turn it off. Turn off I'm about to get out. And Daniel says to me, "Avi, aren't you a religious person?" I said, "Oh, yeah, oh, yeah." So he says, "Don't you know there's no such thing as luck?
Mm,
It's all from God," he tells me.
yeah.
And
Hashem reminded you.
yes, he did, Daniel. Non-Jewish, but it's all there, yeah. I'd teed me up. You could take me up with that parking place thing.
Yeah, but it's remembering every little act of chesed Hashem does for us and recognizing it and seeing it as that.
Yeah, exactly.
Actually, that's another question I have because it says, "Chochma bagoyim ta'amin, Torah bagoyim al ta'amin."
Right.
And your story, it's not the first time that a non-Jew has, like that I've experienced a non-Jew actually helping a Jew with faith. They have such strong faith in God. And
Right.
I wonder, what to do with that because I've experienced a strengthening in faith. Like someone told me something and it was non-Jewish and I was like, you're right, it's Hashem, whatever. But how am I supposed to take that?
Just take it. What do you mean? Just take it. You mean against the don't believe him that they have Torah?
Yeah.
Because the Torah goes way more infinitely deep than that. The Torah when it goes to Atzmus, and the religions of the world are not Atzmus. They're very much connected with the hashpahs from Atzmus. Even to the extent that even idol worship. Recognize what does idol worship mean? It recognizes that there's a power in things, right? And this power, and that these powers come from deeper and deeper levels.
So for a guy to tell me, just surrender to Hashem, let Hashem take care of it.
Good.
Let God take it. That's not Torah Bagoyim. That's just
that's not Torah Bagoyim. That's the teaching of God to Umas Ha'olam, that there is a God, and believe in God, and believe in Hashgacha Pratis. That's all part of the Sheva Mitzvahs. So we just go, that's godly and therefore true, but it's not as deep as Torah as Torah goes. I don't have a good example. I would like to. It would be nice to have a good example of what would be an example of a level of Torah where, where would we say, where you could see it clearly?
I guess if they give me a new chiddush
know.
on Chumash, then that's Torah B'Goyim.
I don't.
I'm not listening.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I'd like to think about that. What that would be like.
I had a situation yesterday. I was on the phone with somebody, customer service, and I gave them my email, which is midwife one, and she said, "Oh, you're a midwife." I said, "Yeah." She said, "Oh, I had my babies at home." Oh, wonderful. And so it turns out she did what's called free birthing, where she has nobody attending her. She has her baby on her own. So I said, well, you didn't have anybody there, in case of an emergency or a problem. I said, next time you might want to think about having somebody sitting in the corner, not doing anything, but if there's an emergency. She said, no, I had complete faith and trust in God that it would come out the way it was supposed to. So I thought, on one hand, that was like lahavdil, put just like such a muna. Yeah. But on the other hand, we utilize experts when we need them. If there's so if somebody bleeds out and you could have had someone there with drugs and saved the life.
Yeah.
So I felt kind of like that was a difference between the Torah approach and just pure faith.
Yeah, that's a good example. That is a good example. Because if it were, as you said, bleeding out, that's also from Hashem. And you have somebody there for that. Yeah. There's blind faith and there's open eyes faith. And
I think there's a limit to that trust, because then you trust that whatever happens is supposed to happen, but you don't trust that Hashem is sending you a doctor to fix it.
You see, it's good. It harks back to the beginning of our conversation, that if you understand trust in God, that it's always going to turn out good, meaning good in my eyes. And we know it doesn't, which is also from God. So it's a bit naive to think that, and that's, I think, what you're saying. It's a bit naive to think that your trust in God assures that it's going to come out the way you want it to come out.
No, but also God may want the doctor to come and intervene and have this bonding experience together.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
You don't know how God's ways.
That's what I'm saying.
Right.
The further approach that she's taking is a naive approach that God will do what you want in the way that you want it. No. He'll do what he wants in the way that he wants it, and that's Hashgacha Pratis, and deal with it.
Although I did hear one woman who went and did that and had a bad outcome.
Yeah.
And still didn't regret her experience. Even though if it could have been different.
You said that's what God wanted, huh?
Yep.
Yeah.
But I think that's a difference where we try to find experts and people to help.
Because we believe experts, because we believe those experts are from God. Also.
Exactly.
God's hand doesn't stop with the experts. They're not separate from God.
It sounds like the opposite of false humility. It's a type of arrogance.
A type of hubris it is to believe that God will do whatever I want. Okay, this is a very interesting conversation. Anybody else want to add to this before we go? Okay, thank you. We'll see you tomorrow. Yimir Hashem. Bye-bye.
Thank you.